Greetings from C.J. Lovik. There's a torrent of end-time speculation going on, and much of it is creating expectations that I believe are premature by 6 years and will not happen yet. Let me begin by sharing my own prophetic perspective. Number 1, the Ezekiel 38 war is not about to start. The timing of the wars that end in the final battle before the end of the 70th week of Daniel will not begin until 2030 AD, a year before the Lord comes to set up his kingdom in 2031 AD. Number 2, the next thing that's going to happen on God's prophetic calendar is the snatching away of his bride, and this will be followed days later by the strengthening of the existing Abrahamic Accord. You can look for that to happen on the Day of Atonement in the middle of October of this year, 2024. Number 3, in my last video I identified the time period that would begin the 70th week of Daniel. That time period must be divisible by both 7 and 49. In my last video, I introduced the only number that satisfies the 2 Jubilee requirements. That number is 6,027 years, and 6,027 years plus 7 years. I'm looking for this prophetic cycle to begin on the Day of Atonement, 2024 AD. 6,027 is divisible by 7 861 times, and divisible by 49 123 times. This numerical requirement takes us back to the time of the creation date of 4005 BC. The 70th week of Daniel will start exactly 7 years from the completion of the 6,000 years, and it must begin on the only Jubilee cycle that fits this pattern in 2024 AD. The 2024 Jubilee is confirmed by many other Jubilee cycles that begin in 4005 BC. But let me share the most important Jubilee cycle that begins in 1408 BC, the year Israel entered the Promised Land, which is exactly 3,430 years ago. 3,430 years from the year 2024, the very year we're living in. 3,430 years divided by 49 equals 70 Jubilees that announce, I believe, the 70th week of Daniel. I'm looking for this prophetic cycle to end on the Day of Atonement in 2031 AD. 6,027 plus 7 is divisible by 7 862 times, and divisible by 49 123 times. This numerical requirement takes us back to the creation week that starts in 4005 and ends the first week in 3998 BC, exactly 7 years after the creation date. The 70th week of Daniel will end exactly 7 years from the completion of the 6,000 years, and it must begin on the only Jubilee cycle that fits this pattern in 2031, and which is the only Jubilee I can find that fits the pattern that the Lord introduced in 70 AD. The 2031 Jubilee cycle is confirmed at the end of the first creation week that started in 4005 BC and ended in 3998 BC. This is the start date for the Ezekiel 4 siege sign that took place as Yeshua and Ezekiel prophesied it would in 70 AD. 70 AD plus 7 times 40 equals 1,960 years. 1,960 years divided by 49 equals exactly 40 Jubilees. 40 Jubilees that forecast the end of the 70th week of Daniel in 2031 AD. I believe you and I are living just days before the 70th week of Daniel is to begin. Will you be here when it happens? If you have trusted in Yeshua HaMashiach, then I believe you and I will be in heaven before the Day of Atonement takes place in the middle of October. The 70th Jubilee cycle that I believe begins the 70th week of Daniel. This is what I believe is going to happen in October of 2024. Maranatha.